a soft persecution, what I like to call a pleasureful forgetting. And in the majority world, there's a hard persecution, which is a painful remembering. How can we combat that soft persecution here in the West?
Let's talk about us guys.
Okay.
On the mission field, whether you're charismatics, Baptists, whether you're with Frontiers, YWAM, OM, whatever groups out there, we have 7 single women for every 1 single man. It's like men in our churches, brother, are praying, God, here am I, send my sister. And if you go to the hard places, like when we got kicked out of Yemen, we had 21 single women and 1 guy. And the harder the place, the more women we have, the less men. Now, so the question you and I need to talk about is, over time, is what is it in Christian church culture that's emasculating men? One of them, obvious to me, is our culture just does the pastor-teacher thing. And young men, that's what they have. If they are watching men lead, that's the role they see. Cleaned up, sheep among sheep, nothing wrong with that. But Jesus is quoted. Some are given the role of apostle, church planter, evangelist, pastor, teacher. We've edited those first 2 or 3 out. We don't have that model. And so that's why a lot of workers like ourselves, I avoid a lot of times the word missionary, but they go over and they evangelize until they can see enough people to have baptized, and then they gather them so they can pastor them. But a pastor is always a local person, not a foreigner. The foreigner, we're bait for Jesus. You know, we let local people fish with us, and it often doesn't turn out well for the bait. But we're like Paul. We're going from place to place to place. We do it in the language. We do it in the culture. But this thing about where we're having so many women show up, and the men are not showing up. The pastor teacher is just one piece of that. A bigger piece that we could talk about a long time, and I think you could help me, is why men are not coming, is because my home culture lies to us. Now think of Christian men around the world. Picture fathers, just not in persecution. They're in rural Ethiopia. They're in southern Sudan. They're in the Congo. They're in South America. They're up the Amazon bases. They're making, if they have a job, $1 to $2 a day. So they're a barter economy. They don't have disposable income. And yet my culture tells me, Ripken, if you're going to be a man of God, it is your responsibility to see that your wife and children, married appropriately, if that's true, have the best medical care, cleanest water, the best education, the best shelter, and above all else, you are responsible for their security. What we've just said, and that's by me saying that, we've just said to 90% of the Christian fathers over the world, you have no chance whatsoever of being a good father, a good husband, because you cannot protect your boys 3 and under from Herod's killers. If Herod's soldiers want your wives and daughters, they're going to take them. You're lucky to send 1 child to school, and that will never be your daughter. In rural parts of Islam, girls are married at 14. Education is the number 1 factor determining what age they married, and the guy's usually 30 years of age. And I can go on and on and on, but when I talk to guys, when their wives are willing to go to the Somalias and the Afghanistans, the mountains and the deserts of this world, and their husbands want to go, and I can name some places, and those places need Jesus, but they're just the more dressed up, Western-oriented places. It's just because of this lie they believe. But see, for me, and I hear my grandfather and father say often, I'd rather be a poor man and go to heaven than a rich man and go to hell. I thought that was in the Bible. And so when I got to Africa, that was my biggest adjustment. I'm from a very poor family in Kentucky. And so I get there, we have access to medical care. Have to drive there, We have access. I dug a water well, so we had clean water. None of the villages had that unless they come to our place. We have access to regular food. It wasn't that varied. We had fair security. We had nice housing, but having access to more than survivability put me in the top 5% of the richest people in Africa. Top 5%. So now I'm the rich guy going to hell in my mind. And I've had guys tell me, and I am not picking a Second Amendment fight. I'm not going to do that. But I've had man after man, father after father, husband after father, pump me in the chest with their finger and said, I will not go to these places because they will not allow me to take my guns, and I cannot protect my family. And I asked them, so what's your job? Food, water, shelter, education, medicine, security. So I asked them, what is it that you let God do? And they're dumbfounded. And the wives will go over and get in their laps and put their arms around their husbands and weep and say, honey, that's what I've been trying to say to you for years. I have a God. I need a husband. They're not the same person. And so what our culture tells us Christian men, what it means to be a godly parent, that's been one of the most hurtful things that I've had a hard time responding to, is by implication over, you're going to take your wife with you? No, I'm going to leave her for 35 years. You're taking your kids with you? No, I'm going to let my family raise them and just tell them they don't matter to me when they are the best missionaries that we've ever had out there. And the whole implication is you're not a good husband, you're not a good father, because you're taking them out of these places, America, where they have all this good stuff. And yet 9 out of 10 of our kids that grow up on the mission field finish in the top 90 percentile of however you measure success, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, educationally. They finish up in the top strata. Now, 10%, my goodness, they fall hard, and they almost never can adjust back here. So there are those prices to pay. But the question is, we've got to answer is, what does it mean to be a man of God? What's my role and what's God's role? And we fight over this verse about women submit to your husbands and to the Lord. And we almost use that to fight over church positions. But you know what the next part of that verse says? Women, submit to your husbands as unto the Lord. Husbands, love your wife
as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So that's the part we don't remember.
And when Muslim women see, watch Ruth, defer to her, ask her to tell Bible stories in a gathering, and attract it to her after 45 years of marriage, and they will say, as we tell these Bible stories, if I can't believe there's a man on earth willing to give their life, oh yes, for his honor, but for the love of his wife. That's incomprehensible. That's what we get to do. That's what my wife and I and our kids get to do. And what a joy that is to let them look in on our marriage and our parenting. And if there's anything that we've sacrificed, man, 100-fold's been given back to us.